Imagine this. Apple might be sneaking actual camera hardware tricks, the kind DSLR nerds argue about at 3 a.m., into the iPhone 18 Pro. Not software, not AI, real optics. And if this rumor is even half true, this could be the biggest camera shift since night mode, or it could be total nonsense. And honestly, that's what makes it fun, because Apple adding a teleconverter to an iPhone is like Apple suddenly deciding, you know what? Let's slap a spoiler on a MacBook. Weird, audacious, borderline genius. Now, let's rewind and set the stage. According to MacRumors, a Chinese leaker going by Smart Pikachu just claimed that Apple's variable aperture camera system for the iPhone 18 Pro has officially entered late-stage engineering samples. Translation: this isn't just a slide in a PowerPoint deck anymore. There are real prototype units being tested right now, and that alone is massive. Why is it massive? Because variable aperture would be a first for iPhone hardware. Not simulated blur, not computational wizardry, actual mechanical, physical control over how much light hits the sensor. And then the leaker casually drops this line like it's no big deal. Oh, and teleconverters are also under evaluation. Record scratch. Wait, what? Before we spiral into chaos, let's talk variable aperture first, because this part actually makes sense. Right now, iPhones use fixed aperture lenses. They're great, don't get me wrong, but they're locked. Apple compensates with computational photography in a smart HDR, deep fusion, all that sauce, and it works shockingly well, but it's still software solving problems that the hardware can't. A variable aperture changes that completely. It lets the lens physically open or close depending on the scene. Bright sunlight, close it down for cleaner highlights, more natural motion blur in video. Low light, open it up and soak in photons like it's happy hour at a rooftop bar. And this isn't just random speculation. Ming-Chi Kuo, yes, that Ming-Chi Kuo, already said back in late 2024 that both iPhone 18 Pro models would get variable aperture on the main camera. Then, another report in October 2025 suggested Apple was actively sourcing components for it. This isn't a one-off rumor, this is a pattern. And for video especially, this is huge. Natural motion blur, smoother exposure shifts, and far less of that why does this look like a YouTube Shorts filter vibe. Basically, the iPhone camera starts behaving more like a real camera instead of a supercomputer pretending to be one. Now, let's talk about the chaos part, teleconverters. If you're not deep in camera lore, a teleconverter is an optical element you attach between a lens and a camera body to increase focal length. It gives you more zoom, but at the cost of light. DSLR users know them. Wildlife photographers debate them. Smartphone cameras, not so much. That's why 9to5Mac basically read this claim and went, but yeah, that doesn't make sense. And they're not wrong. A built-in teleconverter inside an iPhone would be weird. There's no interchangeable lens system. There's no physical space. And adding optical elements that reduce light inside a phone that already fights physics daily sounds like Apple voluntarily playing on hard mode. So what's really going on here? There are a few possibilities. One, mistranslation. Maybe the word teleconverter is just a fancy way of describing some other optical trick. Perhaps a redesigned periscope system, a folded lens improvement, or a multi-stage zoom mechanism. Smart Pikachu has a solid track record with Android leaks, but Apple's supply chain is a whole different beast. Two, Apple is experimenting but won't ship it. At this stage, the iPhone 18 Pro design is locked, but individual modules like cameras are still being tested in parallel. Apple has done this before. Remember when variable aperture was rumored for the iPhone 17 and then quietly vanished? Yeah. And three, the spicy one. Apple is testing something completely new that doesn't have a clean name yet. If that's the case, suddenly the variable aperture makes even more sense, because if a zoom system reduces light optically, a variable aperture could compensate dynamically. balancing one physical system with another. Very Apple, very expensive, very. We'll explain it in a 90-second keynote animation with dramatic piano music. Let's talk credibility. Smart Pikachu is relatively new when it comes to Apple leaks. MacRumors themselves urge caution, and 9 to 5 Mac flat out says the teleconverter claim is likely spurious. So no, this isn't guaranteed. This isn't lock it in for September 2026. This is Apple in the lab stress testing ideas to see what survives. But here's the thing, even Apple testing this tells us something important. They're not just relying on AI and software anymore. They're pushing optics again, real hardware, physical solutions, the kind of stuff that actual camera enthusiasts care about. And that's exciting because if Apple nails variable aperture, even subtly, it could quietly change how iPhones shoot video and photos without users even realizing why everything suddenly looks more cinematic, more controlled, less overprocessed iPhone look. Your Instagram photos won't magically turn into a Christopher Nolan film, but they might finally stop looking like they were sharpened by a caffeinated algorithm. So where does this leave us? Best case, the iPhone 18 Pro becomes Apple's most camera nerd approved phone ever, with variable aperture delivering real creative control and a smarter zoom system hiding behind confusing terminology. Worst case, Apple drops the teleconverter idea entirely, ships variable aperture alone, and never mentions the word teleconverter again, which honestly feels very on brand. Other way, something interesting is happening in Cupertino, and for the first time in a while, it's not just AI enhancement number 47, it's optics, real optics, and that, my friends, is the kind of rumor worth paying attention to. So now the real question, are you excited or are you already drafting your Apple overpromised again tweet? See you next one. Peace out.